we sometimes need to make more complex assessments of different conditions. So let's talk about doing nested if statements and comparing multiple conditions. So let's give the example of somebody who works full-time and has been working for 5 years at a company will get 10 days of paid vacation. If they work full-time but have not been there for 10 years, they'd get 1 week of paid vacation. So there are 2 variables that we need to check here. So we're going to look for employment status, which could be full or part-time. And we'll initialize it to be equal to F so that we can do a comparison on that. And we could do that upper or lowercase, but we'd want to pick one or the other and use it the same way throughout the program. And then the next condition we're going to look at is length of employment. And we're going to initially set that to 3. And we'll see how it changes our code as we change those variables. So we're going to start with if employee status equals, again, that's our comparison, F, and then it will drop down into the indented next line of code, if length of employment and here, we're going to get more into this later, instead of an equals, I'm going to do a greater than or equals, and we'll get more into this option in a minute. And so we would have to put in here what they're doing. So if they're employed full-time and if the length of the employment is greater than or equal to 5, then print "10 vacation days." But we have other options we have to indicate. So they could be full-time, but they might not be there for greater than or equal to 5 years. So we'd have an else statement here, which would mean that they're not greater than or equal to 5, in which we would print "5 vacation days." So that handles that combination of options. But it doesn't matter how long they've been there if they're not full-time. So we need an else that has to match up with here. No paid vacation. And we could keep on going with this where we had them nested, where it's greater than 5, greater than 10, and sort of filter through those. So this is one way of doing multiple conditions. There are other approaches we can use, but it's common to nest conditions inside of each other, and you can have more than one. So sometimes you'll want to test a series of conditions. So instead of doing it this way, we would use what's called an else-if statement. And a good example of an else-if statement is looking at grades on a test or quiz, because there are more than one possible letter grades based on whatever score somebody achieves when they take a quiz or a test. So traditionally, Most teachers use a 90, 80, 70, 60 type scale. We could even set it up with variables where we define that, but we're going to simplify. So we're going to say that we are going to evaluate the letter grade based on a test score and print the letter grade on the screen. So for example, we'll say that the student took a test and got a score of 86. So we're going to create the variable score, and we're going to set it equal to, because this is the assignment operator, 86. On most scales, that's going to be a B, but we're going to have to sort of follow through to see where it hits. So we're going to do if, and these should actually be aligned, if score greater than or equal to 90, print A. L if, and this will occur when this one is not true. So if it's greater than or equal to 90, we're done. L if score greater than or equal to 80, print B. And that's actually going to be here because it's less than 90. So we drop down to the second condition, and it's greater than 80. We'd leave the loop, we'd leave the decision structure at this point because the condition's been met. But we could keep going to see if it's greater than or equal to 70. That would be a C. Greater than or equal to 60. That would be a D. And your final else statement, if it doesn't meet any of the conditions above, would be an F. So that's when none of the above conditions are met. So the else is typically used in an ELIF, and we'll just put it out here. So ELIF statements should end with an else. And there you're going to have some sort of default action. In this case, if it doesn't meet any of the different options above it, the end result, the else statement, the final else statement would be an F.